If you are going through a divorce, or maybe you're post divorce, and you are kind of still co parenting, and there are some things that are kind of tricky, and you don't know how to navigate maybe this stage of the journey, of the divorce journey, I've got Karen McMahon in the house to help you today. This is a topic we really haven't gone into yet. And it's important because there are children involved, young adults involved, and it can get messy. So today we're diving in, and let me just say hi to Karen because I see that you're here. Hi, Karen.
Hey, hey, Junie, thanks for having me.
I am so thrilled that we're doing this conversation. I certainly needed you years ago. I navigated the waters on my own, and they were choppy waters. So I'm so glad that we're going to be able to unpack this for the women and maybe some men that are listening on how to really do this well and how to take care of the kids. Let me tell them a little bit about you. So Karen McMahon is a high conflict divorce strategist, certified divorce coach, and founder of Journey Beyond Divorce. She began divorce coaching in 2010, which is when I got my divorce, after recognizing that the pain of her divorce led her. Sorry, I'm going to repeat that. She began divorce coaching in 2010, which is when I had my divorce, after recognizing that the pain of her divorce led her on a transformational journey into a powerful and unexpected new life. Karen leads a national team of divorce coaches in supporting men and women around the world to become calm, clear, and confident as they navigate divorce. So important. She also has a podcast, Beyond Journey Beyond Divorce, which I was very blessed to be on recently. And she's the gosh, she's got a million things. She's the co-author of Stepping Out of Chaos, Turning Pain to Possibility, creator of the Journey Beyond Divorce exclusive Divorce 101 strategic blueprint for a high conflict divorce program. I wasn't even going to say all that, but man, as I'm reading it, I'm like, no, I really want you to know that she's got the chops. So let's begin. It really is such a pleasure to have you here. Thank you for sharing some time with us.
Yeah, such an important conversation. I'm happy to be here.
So, let's just go right in. I mean, obviously you went through it. You went through your own transformation and felt the need and saw the need to help others. What did you experience in your journey of transformation, and what would you think is the biggest takeaway that you actually bring out into the world with others that are going through that?
That's such a good question. And, most people, they think about divorce and we generally look at that external journey, right? I need to understand the legal, I need to get my finances together, I need to wrangle with like how much shared parenting. And that's all hard. It's difficult. What people come to realize is that internal journey, the emotional upset, the triggering, the reactivity, the fighting with your spouse or the shutting down. And then it's not just your spouse and you, it's the kids, it's the in-laws, it's the friends, it's the family. And so a huge challenge for everybody, no matter their age or gender or how long they've been married, is really navigating those incredibly difficult choppy emotional waters. And the opportunity in that, of course, Junie, is to learn so much about yourself. So I know for me personally, I was fairly unconscious, and so I had triggers, but I didn't know them. I had limiting beliefs that weren't bringing me value, but I didn't realize it. I had behaviors that were blowing up my marriage as much as his were, but I could only see his. And so this is,
That's so happens so often where we, we point the fingers, we throw our spouses under the bus, and then we have time to look back and kind of go, well, I was part of the journey there.
yeah,
Sorry to
yeah,
interrupt you.
my baggage or luggage was rather large as well. And so the opportunity is really to slow it down and to attend both to that external and the internal journey simultaneously. And when one does so, you can really emerge, I like to say, a healed and refined version of yourself.
I love that, and the fact that you were swimming in those uncharted territories, knowing that there was this internal journey that you had to do. I love that you married, so to speak, those two parts of the external. You got to know what you're doing when you're going through divorce and post divorce, and how do you manage the emotions? How do you show up for yourself and your kids, and have a relationship with this person that sometimes and oftentimes are still part of the children's life. So, what would you say might be some of the biggest challenges people face when it comes to the co parenting when you don't want anything to do with your spouse?
Yeah, yeah,
How do
absolutely.
you navigate that one?
Well, on a very foundational level, many people don't pivot from this intimate relationship they had with their spouse to the business relationship that they need to have with their co-parent. And so you can
Ooh,
tell just
yes.
from the way I described it, one is very emotionally entrenched. Your business relationships, not so much. And so even though it's your people, your little people that you brought into the world, and there's always going to be emotion involved, that pivot from you need to hear me, you need to see me, we need to be on the same page, which sometimes happens and is awesome and brilliant. But when it doesn't, I have found over the last 14 years that people get divorced, but because they don't do the inner journey and they don't pivot to the business co-parenting, they end up just living under a separate roof, having all the same fights, the same aggravation, the same reactivity. And that's just heartbreaking because divorce is so hard. Let's make sure it's also a catalyst for the change. And not just the change that's going to make the parent a better person, but because you then get to pay it forward to your children, like everything you've learned. And so when it comes to co-parenting, pivoting from intimate relationship to business relationship is foundational.
I think that it like I love that you shared that because it's such a different animal. It's just so different. And there are these human beings, children involved. And most of the people that are listening have, probably kids that are maybe finishing high school, in college. I mean, these, they're cooked. These are not little babies. And yet they still are so young and vulnerable to what could potentially be chaotic when it comes to the emotional stuff that's still going on. And most people, in my opinion, and why I do the work I do, have not slowed down to go within, have not done the inner work to know why they're reacting the way they're reacting, the baggage they have picked up along the way, the pain and the anger that they're bringing post divorce because maybe they didn't want the divorce or maybe they were betrayed. And so there's still a lot of fires going on inside of people. And yet I'm hearing you say now we need to shift into the business aspect. And not everybody can do that or do it well. And I'm just curious, how do you do that? Because the black and white of divorce logistics.
Right.
What are some tips on what do you do when it is volatile and maybe only one person's like, yeah, we need to work this out, a schedule, let's figure this out, with our left brain and, park the ego and the emotions at the door so our kids don't suffer. What do you have on that?
Yeah, so I think that the bottom line is when you're co-parenting, you're managing a calendar, you're managing the needs and expectations of your children. And one of the most important questions that you can jot down and ask yourself every time you're getting upset is how important is it? And
Mm.
there are so many situations where the child might be upset. And if we talk specifically about gray divorce, right? Someone who's in their 50s, 60s, your children are going to be teenagers. Teenagers are really hard. So now you've got a teenager who their hormones are bouncing off the walls, peer pressure is off the charts, and so they're in a stage of their life where there's all types of transitions in their little life, and now the marital family is falling apart, and maybe mom is really angry at dad, or or somebody cheated on the other one, or finances all of a sudden really tight and causing its own tension. And so it's easy to snap at a teenager because a teenager is typically very self-focused. I have a lot of clients who are divorcing people with personalities, and they'll be like, my son or daughter is a narcissist too. And I'm like, no, they're just a teenager. They're just very self-focused. They just present that way, but
Yeah.
don't worry about that. So you're dealing now, here you are, and I want to honor this. You're going through, or you just got off the battlefield of divorce. And so you're dealing with a cortisol overload because of all of the stress. You're trying to figure out the uncertainty of this new life. And then you've got a teenager or an emerging adult with their own opinions. They might even be, another thing is they might be telling you what to do, and what they think and what you can and can't do in terms of dating, or, and so,
I just want to be clear. You're talking about the ex is telling you what to
oh,
do and what not to
the
do.
kids,
The
when
kids.
you're
Oh,
dealing
okay.
with teenagers,
Oh
young
yeah.
adults, or
I
even,
lived that. Literally lived that. That, my ex was, party city, going out, seeing women, all, but I started dating and my son was like, "How dare you? You just broke up with dad." And I was just like, "What? What?" Anyway,
exactly.
so
And
yeah.
and so that's all, for me, that's all part of the co-parenting, because the parenting and co-parenting is all meshed together. And so if you can get real clear on your household, and I would say it's so important to have boundaries in co-parenting, because you need to have boundaries with your teens and emerging adults. You need to have boundaries with your ex, and not just boundaries with them, but you need to have boundaries, right? Like telling the other parent what they should do is never a good idea. It never ends well. And so there are all these details, and then people spend so much time trying to put a custody schedule together. But then once you start living it, this happened to me. I was like, how did we not think about that? How did we miss that huge detail? And now we're fighting over it. And so there's many opportunities to disagree. The soccer gear is at the other house. The kid ate like popcorn for dinner. Like there's a million things that you could fight over. And it brings us back to, how important is it?
I really love that question, about how important is it, but I want to just piggyback on what you were just saying, which is it can be really chaotic. It's like, oh, mom, I left my backpack at dad's, or you're hearing that he ate popcorn for dinner, and then you're like, ah, nutrition and blah, blah, blah. And, and to be able to take that breath and to ask, in the grand scheme of things, is it going to be what's more important, to go head to head about the popcorn, or to just let it go and create some stability and move on and make sure the next meal is highly nutritious. It just seems like a constant obstacle course, because you are dealing with two people. If it's not where they're able to really work together and have a conscious agreement, it does get messy. Any tips on how to navigate that? Because, you're dealing with different personalities, you're dealing with different hurts and pains. I know my ex at the time, he just felt so like the rug got pulled out from underneath him. And he was like, I can't believe you're bringing so much shame to our family. And I remember saying to him, don't do that. I'm like, that's an interesting belief you have, that you're bringing shame. However, let's look at that, and let's not bring that into the vortex of my kid's life. And of course, I'm not going to go into my whole divorce thing. We ended up figuring out our way and working it in our way. However, there were those moments that were really messy, and it did take a toll on my kid. So what do you do in those messy moments where you say, I can't let it go?
Yeah.
And this is not okay. This is not good behavior. My ex is throwing me under the bus or something like that, which was not what happened with me,
Yeah,
thankfully, but it happens often. And then the kids suffer or the kids suffer.
absolutely. And so there's a couple of things. One is, the thought that you could now, unless you're in this collaborative, cooperative, beautiful space, which is not exactly what we're talking about right now. And even in that space, there's going to be disagreement. And you come back to how important is it? Because if there's rarely disagreement, let the disagreement like just sit there unless it's severe. But let's say you're in a situation where there's not a lot of collaboration and cooperation. One of the mistakes that my clients make is they call their ex and tell their ex what they're doing wrong and what they should do differently. And, the question is, so how'd that work for you? How did it work for you during the 25 years you were married? How's it working for you now?
Yeah.
Perhaps that ship has sailed. Perhaps there is no telling your ex what they should do. So what else can we do? Now we're talking today about teenagers, emerging adults, and young adults.
Yeah.
Go directly to the children. And people are like, no, you're not supposed to do that. Yes, you're supposed to do that. You go directly to the children. So I would say to my son, I know at daddy's house, you can stay up until 3 o'clock in the morning playing video games. How is that for you? Oh my God, that's great. That's terrific. I love that. I hate that I can't do that at your house. I get to do it at dad's house. Terrific. Can we take a look at what your grades look like when you're at dad's Thursday and you're failing your quizzes and tests on Friday? How does that feel for you? What responsibility do you want to take? Because daddy is okay with it. And if you're okay with it, then let's talk about what that means. And so I would have these conversations with my teenagers and emerging adults and bring to them the issue and because what's happening then is I'm asking more than I'm telling. So now they're slowing down and going, yeah, my grades are actually going down. Yeah, I did want to go to that college. I wonder if like all of this, right? And so you're building emotional intelligence, you're building trust because you're asking more than telling, and you're speaking to somebody that you have some agency still over formulating the way that they behave, right? And you're not bashing the other parent, so it doesn't end
Exactly.
up being them against you. Because my kids would come home constantly. I had a very high conflict situation, and except for them saying this happened at dad's, I never mentioned dad's name because it wasn't about dad. It was about the experience that they had. How did you feel about it? What did you do about it? How would you do it differently? If there was no fear, what would you do differently? How can I support you? And you always end with, how can I support you? And so one of the things, I had a therapist for my son, and he said, parents don't let children experience real world consequences nearly as much as they should. So if your kid is a
Mm.
teenager and they go out and they get drunk. My daughter got completely drunk. She came home, I held her hair, she threw up in the toilet. The next day, she had a headache, she didn't remember, she felt shame. She had enough consequences. Her and I could sit down and talk about, how was that for you? What was the danger that you were at a football party and you were incoherent and you could have gotten really, really hurt?
Mm.
And so these are the kinds of things that as a co-parent, you can do to powerfully support your children without getting into it with your ex.
I just absolutely love how you shared that, and I've heard that so often too. Don't talk to the kid about it, just keep it to the adults. I think it comes down to how we talk to the kids, how we invite them into the conversation and build that emotional intelligence. I thought that was so beautifully shared just now. How does it impact you staying up till 3 in the morning? It's not saying dad is doing anything wrong. And you're kind of being neutral and you're allowing them to go in and kind of go, well, I was actually really tired and I did screw up that test. And what are the implications? Like really inviting them into the conversation around choice and what really works and what doesn't, and giving them that agency to have a different choice the next time. Well, dad, I'm gonna, and of course, then some people might be thinking, really, are they really gonna self-regulate if they thought that, well, if they have the conversation and the opportunity to go, well, I really do want to get into that college and I keep fucking up. Is this really a good idea to keep doing? Maybe mom is right. To be able to open up the conversation and support them in that way. I just think that's beautiful. What were you going to say?
And the truth is, one of the things my kids, I went to a 12-step program, so I raised my kids on take what you like and leave the rest. That's a slogan out of the 12-step program. So with their dad, they would be like, they were allowed to smoke pot like morning, noon, and night over at dad's. And so I could have called him and screamed and yelled and kicked, and it wouldn't have done any good. So I talked to them, and they were like, well, you told us to take what we like and leave the rest. And
Ooh.
here's the thing. So was I able to get them to stop? There were different rules at my house, but because of the way I addressed it, we had open conversations. Like my kids would come to me and tell me things. My kids' friends would come to me and tell me things they couldn't tell their parents. And what I learned was it's so much more important for me to know what's going on in their life, to know that they're getting high, they're getting drunk, they're driving with a kid that I don't trust, so that I know and I can have conversations. When we judge, when we criticize, when we bash the other parent in front of the kids, we create like a steel wall. We're not going to
Yeah.
get the communication. We're not going to know what's going on.
Yeah.
And my feeling was, I can't always change the choices they're making. And I would say that to them. I completely disagree with your choice. I'm not happy about it. I see the danger and the damage that can be done. And I will hold my boundaries in our house. And there was a level of respect and trust that got built. And I think that as co-parents, you've gone through this battle of divorce. You're a single parent, you're juggling a lot of balls, you're dealing with probably PTSD from the marriage and the divorce. And so wouldn't it be lovely to be able to pave a smooth road in the relationship with your emerging adults, so that for the rest of your life, you have that beautiful, intimate relationship? And that's really what I encourage.
Again, just so well said. I mean, you're keeping the door open. You know, if a child comes to you and gives you information and you go bananas and you have a big reaction and you get on the phone and you go, "What are you thinking?" Like they're gonna go, "Oh God, I got dad in trouble," or I got mom in trouble, or whatever, wherever they go. Suddenly there's drama, there's chaos, versus again what you're sharing about bringing them in, making it about them and their choices, what works for them, and building that conscious relationship and having that kind of communication that keeps the door open. I just think that's so beautiful. I am
Yeah.
curious. Oh, go ahead.
I just wanted to share a quick
Yeah.
story. I had a client, she had two teenage boys and an ex who was very high conflict, like dragged things out, no money, the whole 9 years. She had every reason to be just so upset and struggling. Yet what she would do is when the boys would occasionally be invited out to dinner with dad, and of course it was like a steakhouse, high expensive thing, they would come home so delighted and excited, and she would judge them and criticize them because he's never here and he doesn't do anything for you and he's not giving me child support. And how could you? And so she was breaking her relationship with her kids who she
Yeah.
loves so much. And she was the parent who was mostly there. And it was in those kinds of conversations, coaching conversations, to be able to say, how is that serving your relationship with them? And is it possible? Could you find a way to be grateful that if dad only takes them out to dinner once a year, 3 times a year, that they get that little piece of him because he's their dad? And I work with a lot of men, and we have similar conversations about moms who are high conflict, but this was the healthy parent, but she was so triggered. She was doing
Yeah.
things that were hurting her relationship. And so when you can step back and really ask that question, like, what's important here? And someone had once said to me, is the decision I'm making about my kids going to enhance my relationship with them or or damage it. And
Yeah.
that was kind of her litmus test. And I love that. So that's another
Yeah.
one you can use.
Yeah. Yeah. So good. Some really great things that you're sharing. So we're talking about post divorce mostly here. And I'm just curious, there are some people here, I'm sure, that might be in it right now. There's that transition of we're all together and now we're not. And that can be really messy for the kids, especially getting used to where are they staying. Not everybody does the nesting where they stay in the same place. Most people don't. And it can get really chaotic, especially if you don't have this down when it comes to schedules and respect for each other and all that stuff. Any tips on how to support the child, even if they're, 16, 17, 18, or even 20 for that matter, they're still vulnerable, their parents, their family, it's changing. How to emotionally support the child while the transition's actually happening.
I think the number one thing is ask. Just keep inquiring, because from the time you tell them, your parents are getting divorced until you're in separate households, you want to check in with them regularly. And again, if we're talking about teenagers and young adults, they're off living their own life, so you might not have as much time with them. And
Yeah.
so I started, my kids were very young. I started having, we had date night. And when they turned into teenagers, I had stopped. I was now divorced, and they each came back to me and said, "Hey, could we start that date night again?" And date night could
Aw.
literally be a half hour skipping stones with my son by the stream, and swinging on a swing with my daughter. And as they got older, we re-engaged with date night, and it became something, more adult. And so when you start early and you create these new ways of being and you continue to have conversations, that's part of it. I strongly recommend starting shared parenting while everyone's still under the same roof, because it's
Mm.
a slower transition. Having said that, the other thing is, when the transition happens, I was the one to move out, so my children got to pick their bedding and their color, and we painted the rooms together. And so there is something fun in that transition. And even if they're staying in the marital home, there's still the opportunity. Hey, you want to freshen up your room? Let's get new stuff. Let's do things differently. And so there are all of these opportunities that, number one, have you honoring the transition it is for them, many opportunities for communication, which is the most important thing. And then to ask. And if you aren't bashing the other parent, and you sit down and say, "So, how have things been at mom's house, at dad's house?" They're
Yeah.
more likely to say, "Well, they actually work a lot and I watch TV," or, "Oh my God, we do all of these fun things," or whatever it is, but you're going to know. The more we know, the more we can support them.
Ah, so many golden nuggets here. I know that you have a rapid relief call gift for the people that are watching and listening. Can you share what that is?
Yeah, so if you're in any of these stages and you're really looking for some additional support, our rapid relief call gives you an opportunity to talk through whatever you're struggling with right now, and to learn about our one-on-one and other resources available that might support you. Like, we have a boundary boot camp, so it might just be like, "Hey, do the boundary boot camp. That's going to help you." So if you go to rapidreliefcall.com, you can book a call with either me or one of the coaches on my team, and we will support you. And you will absolutely walk away with new awareness, an action plan, and some encouragement for sure.
Love it. Love it. We'll make sure all of that, including your podcast and your social links, are in the show notes. For everybody that's listening and watching, I want you to just take a moment right now and think of one person in your life that has a situation similar to what we've been talking about. Someone who might have young adults and they've gone through a divorce, or you hear them going through the drama and the challenges, who might benefit from listening to this podcast. Please share it and like and subscribe, because that's how we reach more people. These are important tools for our children, for our future, for each other. So I encourage you to stay active and use these tools. Grab her rapid relief call if you indeed need it as well. And my goodness, Karen, this was just so amazing. Thank you so much for being here.
Junie, thanks so much for having me.
All right, that's it for today. Mwah. One more thing before you go. Have you taken my Discover Your Love Avatar quiz? It's a 2-minute quiz that can help you not only know your strengths, your superpower, because you have one, also identify some of your blind spots, some of the things that might be having you in your fear, having you behaving in ways that aren't in alignment with your highest self, the way you want to be when it comes to dating and relationships. And it'll also help you discover why maybe the stars haven't lined up for you yet. Bottom line is, you take this 2-minute quiz, you get a full report in your email with details on how to move forward in next level love, whether you want a partner or not. So you can go to midlifeloveoutloud.com/love quiz. The link is in the show notes as well. And if you haven't liked and subscribed to the station, I'm going to encourage you to do that too, so you don't miss any episodes. And I hope you got a ton out of today's. See you next week. Mwah.